We put out a poll on our YouTube chat. Should Atlanta Motor Speedway be reconfigured? Of course, that was the big story entering the weekend, and this morning it was the big story before the race as well. Of course, as we all know, Atlanta's going to be reconfigured to have 28 degrees banking, 40 feet of racing compared to 55, and drivers voiced their frustration over the proposed changes this morning and no feedback from them on the repave and the reconfiguration. Jeff Gluck tweeted he cannot recall a time the drivers were so outspoken about this. So a lot of heat coming into this. And of course, a lot of people were still talking about it. I found it ironic how they're showing clips, talking about how the drivers love coming here. And we know what's going to happen next year. Now, Ben, yesterday I was allowed the opportunity to discuss about this. I know Kobe, Adam talked about this on Wednesday. What is your opinion on this reconfiguration of Atlanta Motor Speedway?
Well, you know what people on Twitter might be saying about maybe trying to get 5 more years out of the Atlanta surface. I said it, when we came here earlier in the season. It's time. The stoppage, the red flag today is only further proof of that. If you're wishful thinking is really the only thing that could keep somebody, still on the side of we should go 1 more year or whatever. So the repave has to happen. That's you can't debate that anymore at this point. The reconfiguration is where I have the problem. And, for me, it's not even so much the fact that they're reconfiguring it. I don't think that, this proposed layout is necessarily the best idea. I think if you were going to reconfigure it, maybe go back to the layout that gave us the epic title battle in 1992, and older fans certainly know and love. But I think that the bigger problem for me is the fact that the executives in the suits at NASCAR made this decision without consulting the drivers first and the teams first. And they're ultimately the ones that have the insight of racing on the track, racing at all the tracks that NASCAR goes to. And, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them said they were approached, but not even, the topic wasn't even discussed with them. That just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. If you're going to make a change so drastic, you would think you would want input from some of the most important people in the industry. And, I think in hindsight, I remember they were talking 4 years ago that the repave was a done deal, and, the drivers begged them to try to squeeze a few more years out of it. In hindsight, it probably would have been better if they had gone ahead and repaved it, because, you spent all that time and effort repaving the track. You're probably not going to tear it all up just to reconfigure it 3 or 4 years later. We're probably not having this conversation right now. So I guess it's another saying of be careful what you wish for. But, I think NASCAR's really put themselves in a difficult situation here because, like Jeff Gluck said, I've never seen a time where the drivers seemed this unified in how outspoken they were. You always have your characters like Kyle Busch or Brad Keselowski, drivers that have been around long enough that aren't afraid to speak their mind and voice their opinions. But, so many drivers are coming out and saying that they're worried about the future of the track and that the racing is not going to be as good. And the fact that nobody brought this up with them, told them that there was a possibility that this might be happening. That's concerning, and I was just talking to a friend earlier today. Obviously this is just one of many issues that NASCAR has, or one of many controversies, I guess you could say, that NASCAR's found themselves in recent years, with the package probably being the one we talk about most often on a weekly basis. I feel like we're seeing some eerily similar, quotes and behavior and languages that American open wheel racing saw in the 90s. And obviously we all know that led to the CART IRL split. Everybody thought CART was too big to fail. They say NASCAR is too big to fail. Again, I'd be careful what we say when it comes to that, because, I'm really, really concerned, to see how many drivers are speaking out about this. I think NASCAR, the controversy with the next gen car, I know we got to wrap it up here and keep the show going. But I could keep going on about this. It's I don't know. I think they're in a very difficult situation here, and you have a controversy with this reconfiguration. It certainly isn't going to help that. And flashing back a little bit, before we started the 2021 season, we discussed on Grid Tonight about NASCAR needing a leader among the drivers in the garage. Jimmy Johnson was kind of seen as that leader in recent years. Now he's retired from NASCAR competition, doing things over in IndyCar now. And it doesn't appear that any driver has emerged as that leader, especially with this news, you're hearing things from all sorts of different directions from all sorts of different drivers. So, Kobe, Adam, this is my first question to you. After today, do you think the relationship between drivers, NASCAR, the tracks, and even teams is at a boiling point?
Definitely, I do think it's at a boiling point, and like you said, I do think we need to be concerned here, and also like Brad Keselowski has said in the past, one day there might come a point where the best drivers no longer come to NASCAR. I'm afraid if NASCAR is doing things that make the drivers don't feel appreciated or don't feel like the sport is heading in the direction that most people want it to go in. I think it could definitely be a dire situation, and and like the Kyle Larsons and Christopher Bells in the world who come from dirt racing, they might decide that it's not even worth going to NASCAR and then just stick to racing on dirt where it's fun. And also drivers who've had a lot of success racing super late models, they might decide that well, drivers who are coming up through the ranks, they might decide that they'll have a lot more fun racing super late models than running NASCAR, especially if they continue heading into this direction. And 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 it's just really crazy to see this happening because, like Jeff Gluck said, I can't recall a time where you see so many drivers unified on a certain stance, which they're clearly not a fan of the Atlanta repave and some among other things in the sport. And like you were saying, we've had like a Kyle Busch, a Brad Keselowski, and occasionally a Kevin Harvick. They'll say they'll say something that goes against the direction NASCAR is heading in every now and again. But most drivers, they keep quiet or they sing NASCAR's praises. But with this certain issue, drivers are becoming more outspoken. They're saying was exactly on their mind, and I think that NASCAR really needs to sit down with them and listen, because if the relationship between them keeps deteriorating, I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
For me, what NASCAR needs is something like the NFL and the NBA has, a, a drivers association or an organization. So all the racetracks can sit down, all the heads of all these racetracks can sit down with the drivers, and so if they have something they want to do, they can all sit down together, come up with an idea, and hopefully make it happen. I've been watching NASCAR for a very long time. I go back to I started watching NASCAR racing in the 80s. And like everyone said, I've never seen this ever in all the years I've watched this sport. It is, it's very sad to see right now, but I hope and pray that something gets done really soon, because I don't like where the sport is going right now, even though I've watched for a long time. And I'll say it once and I'll say it again. What NASCAR needs is a drivers organization like the NFL and the NBA, and have a lead driver to go and talk to all these owners of racetracks, to decide what they should do in the future. I don't know of a particular driver that could do it right now, but it needs to be done soon. It needs to be done ASAP.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point, Adam, about something maybe similar to the Professional Drivers Association, the PDA for short, that we saw in the late 60s, which Richard Petty was the head of, and that only lasted a few months, led to a walkout at Talladega. And, if you want to hear that story, I guess you can just go watch Slapshoe's video, because we don't have time to go through all of that here and relive all that again. But obviously, that was a very different era over half a century ago. We're in a very different time now. So, who knows what's going to happen here as we ponder the future of the sport.